Huo Yuhao did everything for Wang Donger, even ready to sacrifice his life. These touching moments bring to mind the beloved soul land, that raw emotionality and willingness to die for another. Huo Yuhao drank from the fiery source, and his blood spilled onto the grieving scarlet heart flower. As a result, he suffered severe injuries and nearly died. If not for Wang Chou'er, as well as the hidden heaven energy and various other forces within his body, he would have died on the spot. Huo Yuhao's body was far from ordinary. Beyond the ultimate ice within him, the life gold prevented him from dying. But he did it all for love of Wang Donger. Even Wang Chou'er, the imperial beast, was amazed by Huo Yuhao's actions. She never expected humans to make such sacrifices. Wang Donger was saved, though in the original story she was never in any danger, and this ordeal was meant to test the sincerity of Huo Yuhao's feelings. Tang San, who devised the test, never anticipated that Huo Yuhao would drink from the Yang Spring, leading to such severe consequences. If not for Huo Yuhao's icy blood, everything might have ended well. As his wife Wang Donger cared for Huo Yuhao, feeding him medicine and nursing him until he awoke. Elder Zhuang used his healing abilities and green vines to examine Huo Yuhao's condition. He was seriously injured, his internal organs were burned, and his inner spiritual energy was in chaos due to the conflict between the ultimate ice and the fire energy, which didn't belong to him. The only things keeping him alive were the life gold and the energy of heaven and earth. Elder Xianzi was furious because Huo Yuhao had acted recklessly. He went after the flower without telling anyone and nearly died there. Huo Yuhao's external injuries healed after 10 days. Even his burned hands and vocal cords recovered. However, the tournament was approaching, and Huo Yuhao still hadn't woken up. When Wang Chou'er came to check on him, Wang Donger did not object. As time passed, the tournament drew closer, and Huo Yuhao's absence affected the team's morale, as he was their main spirit master. Meanwhile, the Shrek Academy team trained intensively in preparation for the tournament. One evening, as usual, Wang Donger came to Huo Yuhao and began talking about her day. She shared how she'd eaten a lot in the dining hall, worried she might gain weight. She reminisced about when he was clumsy, living with her without knowing she was a girl. Finishing her story, she took out some medicine, placed a pill in her mouth, and out of habit, gently passed it to Huo Yuhao with a kiss. However, this time his lips moved. He was looking at Wang Donger. Yes, Huo Yuhao had finally awoken, but he was in a terrible state. Wang Donger couldn't hold back her tears as she hugged him. Still weak from his severe injuries, Huo Yuhao slowly opened his eyes and tried to smile. The next day, feeling a bit better, he told Wang Donger everything. Huo Yuhao then attempted to assess his condition and was shocked. His meridians were in terrible disarray, like tangled threads, and the energy in his body was in chaos. The energy of the fiery spring, his spiritual power, and the powers of the Snow Empress were in a fragile balance. Outwardly, he appeared almost healthy, but it was an illusion. His condition was so delicate that any interference could endanger his life. Elders Zhuang and Xianzi, realizing the extent of the damage, acknowledged that in this state, he couldn't be treated. If the balance of energies in his body were disrupted, he would die immediately. Huo Yuhao did not intend to give up. He sensed the delicate balance keeping him on the edge of life and death. His companions, the Ice Empress, Snow Empress, and Silkworm, were still with him, as was the ultimate ice energy accumulated in his bones. This gave him confidence in his recovery. Would Huo Yuhao be able to recover? Though he could not even move his fingers, his mental state and spiritual abilities remained intact and had even strengthened, with his spiritual eyes undergoing a new evolution. When Elder Xian and others learned that Huo Yuhao had awakened, they were thrilled. 3 days later, Huo Yuhao felt his spiritual energy stabilize. He opened his eyes and could see every detail of Sea God Island. Wang Donger sensed it too, through spiritual detection. Meanwhile, Elder Xian was having dinner in his room when, suddenly, a smiling face appeared before him. It was Huo Yuhao, projecting his spiritual image. Huo Yuhao's control over his mental power now surpassed even Xianzi's. He could move his projection around Sea God Island, detached from his body. His mental power could now rival that of the titled. Xianzi, a rank 98 titled Douluo, could create similar mental manifestations but couldn't sustain them at a distance. So Huo Yuhao's level of control astonished him. By the way, Elder Xian mentioned a punishment for Huo Yuhao for his reckless actions. Despite his accomplishments, he had indeed violated academy rules, endangering his life. He was temporarily removed from the ranks of the Sea God Pavilion members. This decision was made to maintain order and discipline within the academy, as Huo Yuhao had been designated the future head. Huo Yuhao began to develop a treatment plan, using his mental power to assess his body's condition. Understanding that he needed to fully recover in time for the upcoming tournament, Huo Yuhao decided to start the rehabilitation process. His strategy was to first restore the less damaged areas of his body, gradually moving on to the more serious injuries. First, he restored his legs, then his arms. He could slowly and awkwardly lift both legs. Wang Donger was so overjoyed that she burst into tears. As for Huo Yuhao's arms, thanks to the spiritual bones, the ice scorpion in his left arm and the dark gold bear claw in his right, his bones remained intact. After restoring his meridians, it was time to remove the fiery poison left by contact with the spring's water. This poison was deadly and too close to his heart. The elders decided the only way was to open Huo Yuhao's chest. The Snow Lady was also involved in this. She began the process, gently touching his chest, then created an icy dagger as sharp as a razor. Wang Donger couldn't watch and turned away, fearing for Huo Yuhao. The Snow Lady carefully inserted the dagger into his chest, and the fiery poison immediately burst out. The elders reacted quickly. Xianzi collected the fiery blood in a special container, while Elder Zhuang used his powers to control the blood flow. The Snow Lady continued to hold the ice barrier, but part of the poison tried to reach Huo Yuhao's heart. It was a critical moment. If the poison reached his heart, there would be no saving him. But Huo Yuhao was ready. His million-year spirit ring activated, adding extra protection. The intense cold slowed his blood flow, but it helped expel the poison, and the fiery source was neutralized. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power gradually recovered, and his meridians reopened. But that wasn't the end. After this, Huo Yuhao decided to restore most of his cultivation, for which he sacrificed his legs and one arm. How did it happen? We'll cover this in future videos. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and see you soon.